All right. So we were at we were at the Six Sigma concepts, and this is a part two of our Six Sigma concepts, Six Sigma interview preparation session. So, guys, we were talking about these four areas which we should be very, very clear on answering any Six Sigma related questions, wherein there could be some counter questions asked being later, but we should be very thought about it. And I was also talking about when you given an opportunity to probably talk about any of your tools. So it is always good that you should uh, talk about in a manner when you should be very, very confident on any one of two. Okay, guys, I can hear some echo. Hello. All right. So that's what I was talking about. So any questions so far?
It is okay, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead. Now, one more important thing which we need to keep in mind is while giving the answers on Six Sigma concepts, the interview would also like to know your journey about it. How have you implemented it? Whether you have implemented it or you have a theoretical knowledge about it, because it is not necessary all the time, being a Six Sigma professional, that whatever you have learned, whether you have deployed or not. Okay, so that kind of questions can also be gauged at, but that at a very later stage. Now let's take an example of repeatability and reproducibility. That was a question being asked. So guys, repeatability and reproducibility, if this question is being asked from me, that Simar, can you explain the difference between repeatability and reproducibility? So guys, before I answer this question, I believe everybody out here has a fair understanding about what repeatability and what reproducibility is. Because if I answer that question and if nobody understands, then there is no point in answering that question. I hope everybody out here, all the nine people, should be able to relate to what I'm saying. Okay. So everybody's aware about what repeatability and reproducibility is. Okay. So I got confirmation from two people. So guys, repeatability and reproducibility are two different concepts. And now I will answer this question in a way which I expected you to answer. Okay. So repeatability and reproducibility are part of the measure phase of Six Sigma journey, sir. In repeatability and reproducibility, what we are trying to do is we are trying to gauge whether our measurement system analysis is good to go or not. Okay, and when we say repeatability and reproducibility, this comes from the concept which is called gauge RNR, and wherein gauge RNR stand for repeatability and reproducibility. uh, the difference between repeatability and reproducibility is in repeatability we are measuring the same equipment, or we are measuring the same part using the same operator, using the same equipment. Okay, and in reproducibility, when we are using same part using the same equipment but a different operator, the amount of variation observed between the first operator and the second operator is known as reproducibility. Okay, and while doing repeatability and reproducibility, there is a standard which says that you have to be 90% correct. If we get 90% as a MSA, then we will say good to go. If my MSA is less than 90%, then I would say that my MSA is not passed. Okay, this is a perfect tool which can be help us to prepare for the data analysis in the analyze phase, which can help me to perform my analysis and get to the right root cause. So guys, if you have noticed, I have given an example of how much gauge RNR should be as a standard. I also talk about if it's less than 90, it's not good. I also link it with the root cause by saying if my measurement system is good, then only I will be ready for doing the analysis, because with the help of that, I will be able to get to the right root cause. I also talk about the measurable statement. giving the same example. And then I also talk about, when I started with it, that this is a part of measure phase, help us to perform the measurement system analysis. So these four things, guys, if you keep in mind while framing your answer, not necessarily in any order, but yeah, it should make sense. And that's how you will be good. Okay. Any questions? So now what we're going to do is we are going to talk about that what could be the counter questions which can be asked when we answer that question. Okay. So what are the counter questions that can be asked? Let's say the question is being asked is, what is FMEA? And you've answered it the way you have done it. The interview can ask you certain questions, probably which you may not have covered during the interview, obviously, or maybe something which you must have said, right? So if you're talking about FMEA, and I'm sure everybody's aware that during the FMEA, the RPN, risk priority number, plays a very, very important role. The higher the RPN is, the higher that particular risk is, and which we need to prioritize. Okay. You give an example. I've done the FMEA. I prioritize the high FMEAs, high risk. He can ask about, can you talk about two of the highest RPNs, which you have done it? So probably he's moving towards the storyboard part. He's moving towards the storyboard part wherein he wants to know your project accomplishments. Okay. So it can be linked from the Six Sigma concepts, or he or she can say that, let's say, Vineet, can you please talk about any of your Six Sigma accomplishments? Any of your Six Sigma accomplishments, any Six Sigma project that you may have done, can you please talk about it? What are the things we need to keep in mind while answer this question is what we will talk about in just a while. But I want to touch base more on the Six Sigma concepts, this particular principle, so that you should be clear about this thing. So now I want to know from you, since you've opted for this particular session, there are certain expectations that you may have. Either you may have attended few of the interviews, or you may have certain things to look forward for. So anything that you want to touch upon from a Six Sigma concept standpoint, because I want to be 100% sure whether this part is covered or not. This part is clear to you or not. Any challenge that you face in this part?
I think as of now it's going good because the questions that I have in mind might be answered in other two parts, the storyboard and domain knowledge.
Yeah, that's okay, Vineet. You can ask a question. That's fine.
So actually, the specific question is, as you already said, that it's not necessary to convince or say something like specifically that we have worked on DMAC. I'll tell you my reality. Actually, I'm certified Lean Six Sigma, but I'm the company in which I was working. It was a media company, so it did not have a process improvement culture or Lean Six Sigma culture, which could be backed by, I mean, sponsored by the management and all. So the moment I started learning tools and techniques, part of Six Sigma Black Belt certificate and training. So out of curiosity, I started utilizing those tools to solve problems around me in my company. So I have used the tools and techniques and DMAG in bits and pieces, but sometimes I fail to make the interview understand that the entire DMAG process I have worked on, because I have worked on just 2 or 3 projects on DMAG specifically. So that's why I was asking you the question that I have more worked on lean projects. So I've used the tools and techniques in bits and pieces specifically. That was my question actually. So how could I relate that part to these three covering points: Six Sigma concept, storyboard, and domain knowledge.
Right. So the interviewer has a expectation in his mind or her mind that he's looking for someone who has a lean experience as well as a Six Sigma experience. If you only worked on lean or worked on Six Sigma, that would get my chances of not clearing the interview, because my interview wants to know both side of it. Because when you join an organization, you are supposed to implement either of the methodologies or maybe both the methodologies. So you should be aware of both lean as well as Six Sigma. And nowadays the certification courses which are available are both lean Six Sigma. So that's why it is not only called Six Sigma, it's lean Six Sigma. So while you being asked any question from a Six Sigma perspective or from a lean perspective, you should be thought about both. And that's how the interview would like to know. If I'm only confident about lean, so for example, if there's any question being asked in terms of uh, what is let's say what is confidence level, and confidence level is a principle which is part of Six Sigma. And if I'm not sure about it, and then I may not be able to convince the interviewer. I might say that I have learned through Six Sigma trainings and certification, though I have not utilized it. So not being utilized is okay, because as I said in the beginning of my session, it is not necessary. Even I have total 17 years of experience. Out of that, 10 years into Six Sigma. For the last 10 years, I've been doing only Six Sigma. Initially, I did operations, then I moved to transaction quality. And then for the last 10 years, I've been using Six Sigma. I've been implementing, I've been into a black belt role, I've been into a master black belt role also, and now I'm leading the function also. So I have not used all the tools. If I have not used all the tools, how can I expect you to know all the tools? So knowing all the tools is not required, but giving a wrong answer is a problem. Sorry if I'm moving into a different direction, but that's what recalls me, that if I interview ask you 10 questions and if you're confident about 5, he's good. Not everybody expects you to answer all questions, but if you're not confident about something and you answer it, that puts a wrong impression, that which means the person is not sure about it. So if you're not sure about it, say I'm not sure about it, but this is what I feel. The best part is that you've already given a disclaimer and now you're saying I'm just trying. So that is okay. But Vineet, the answer to your question is that Six Sigma is also important as well as lean is required, at least from a theoretical perspective. You may not have used it, but yeah, from a theoretical perspective, it is required.
Right. Fair enough. Because my concern is like in the company where there is no culture for Lean Six Sigma, there's nobody in the management who could understand importance of Six Sigma. So they would definitely not sponsor the time and resources and money for the projects. So I started on my own initiative. I tried to some extent. I utilized some tools in bits and pieces. Helped the company to get marvelous results out of it. So gradually, I mean, they were able to save huge amount of crores of money from their expense heads. So we picked up a department called Stringers. That's the outsourcing part for gathering the news from outside the company. That's called Stringers. So we picked a small department. Their expenses were around 3 crores rupees. And after a span of 7 to 8 months, the expenses came down to 90 lakhs. And the management got astonished that what exactly is happening. So they gave me more opportunity to work on it, but I could never systematically complete a DMAX cycle for that large project.
I understand. So what Vineet is trying to say is that he have used the tools in bits and pieces because the Six Sigma methodology or the culture is not being there. But basis the knowledge that he has gathered from the certifications, he has used those tools because, as I said earlier, majority of the tools of Six Sigma can be used outside Six Sigma project as well. It is not necessarily that you have to follow a Six Sigma DMAC approach to solve it. A lot of tools can be used independently, like FMEA. like control charts, like Pareto, like scatter plot, like histogram, right? All these tools can be used outside as well, and you can share maximum results. So in that case, Vineet is asking if an interviewer asking about a certain case study of how I have implemented end to end. So what you can do is you can make short stories. You can make short stories because when you have done something, Vineet, you must have definitely prepared a project charter, right? And not necessarily a proper project charter, but you definitely have a problem in hand. That's why you're doing it. Even if you're doing an FMEA, right? Even if you've done an FMEA, even if you have prepared a control chart, even if you've done a Pareto analysis, there is some problem that you were experiencing or your organization was experiencing. Yes or no?
Right.
Without
Right.
that, you will not use it. So there is certain requirement that your organization has.
Right.
Right. So what we
Right.
learn in define phase, guys, what we do, we link the organization big Y with our why, right? And that's what you have to do. So you need to create a story uh, in such a way that the interview would understand that we have done it. If in your organization you're not getting an opportunity to do real Six Sigma live projects, right, and you want to get into that role, how would you do that?
Right.
Right. It is
Right.
not that easy because the professionals, they are looking for such professionals who have used it, right? Let's say if you've done Six Sigma from outside, done a certification, then you can talk about some of the dummy projects that you've done. Then you can
Yes.
convince the interviewer. We will touch upon it maybe during our next session also, that how we can do that. But I will deep dive more into the storyboard part when we answer this question. But then what are the things that we look forward in the storyboard or project accomplishments? And there I will talk about more that how to answer that particular question in terms of uh, narrating your real life experience when it comes to implementation of Six Sigma, right? So we'll talk about it in quite detail uh, in the storyboard format. That how, even if you have not done Six Sigma, you want to get into the role for the first time. Because if I am hiring a black belt, I might not get a tenured black belt. I might not get a seasonal black belt. If that particular person is from operations, when we do an IJP within the same organizations, right? I have somebody from operations who has never done. He's done a project. He's gone through a training, but not done a project. But I want to hire him. On what basis I hire him? On what things I look at least bare minimum in him, so that I can see at least, okay, he's done a dummy project, he has not done a live project, but can he do it? If he's being given some kind of coaching, is he trainable? Right. So that is also something which the organization looks for, and that is something which I will also talk about. So in the storyboard form as well. But in
Right.
order to
Great.
crack the Six Sigma interview, your Six Sigma concept has to be very, very strong, guys. It has to be very, very strong because this is where there is no leeway. In storyboard, you can do a lot of, you can play around with a lot of things. When I'm saying play around, which means you can elaborate your answers, you can talk more about it. Herein, you will get more opportunity. Herein, you can link any problem with DMAC also. But in Six Sigma concepts, there is no leeway. You have to be aware of it. If you are appearing for your Six Sigma black belt interview, if you're applying for a manager or a senior manager role, the person should be well versed. Because if when I conduct interviews, I straight away ask questions from people, and I assume that people should be able to answer in this particular way. Some of them always do it in a structural manner, even though they do three things out of four, then also I'm good. But if somebody gives me four answers, then I'm like, wow, this person is somebody who knows it and can implement with the help of operation, which means he can talk in the Six Sigma language with operations, and that's how we can build a kind of a brand for ourselves, for our organization, or for our department. So that is what. So Six Sigma concepts are very, very required. If you are on your Six Sigma journey, if you are appearing for your Six Sigma interviews, this is something which I must tell you. These are the 9-10 questions, which you should be very, very thorough about, which I've just written here. If you just focus on these ones also, I'm sure majority of the questions would be asked in these various also, right? These are some of the questions where people may go alter. They may not answer it properly. Okay, and that's why the interview would like to know whether this person is aware or not. Especially on the hypothesis testing guide, this is a very lengthy question. He can straight away ask you when your y is discrete and x is discrete, which type of hypothesis test you use. When your y is continuous and x is continuous, which type of test would you use? What are the prerequisites of one-way ANOVA? What is one-way ANOVA? Okay, so hypothesis test, anything can be asked. It all depends upon the interview mood. He can ask you about Mann-Whitney. He can ask you about Moore's median. He can ask you about correlation. He can ask about simple linear regression. He can ask you about chi-square. So anything from hypothesis testing can be asked, right? Control charts. There are various kinds of control chart: IMR chart, X bar R, X bar S, NP chart, P chart, C chart, U chart. It's on my tape because I've been conducting trainings also, and I ask these questions. So that's what you need to know it better as well. What is gauge RNR? I've just answered it, a portion of it. Nowadays, one very important thing which I forgot to mention here is what is value stream mapping, guys. This is one of the powerful lean tool which can be used to identify what are the non-value added activity in the process. This is a tool which can again be used outside Six Sigma, outside lean project also, outside Six Sigma lean project also. If there is any process wherein the business says, I want you as a black belt to deep dive and tell me what are my pain areas. I don't know it. I want you to tell me. So therein you will do a value stream mapping with the help of the team, identify, map the entire process, capture the time from one step to another, capture the waiting time as well, identifying the waste, which are called kaizens, prepare an action plan for those kaizens, and prepare a to-be process map as well. And that's how you can do it. So VSM is a powerful tool, guys, and a lot of interviewer would expect you to know it. A lot of interview would like you to give an example to it. A lot of interview would like you to be a master on it, because this is a tool wherein you will do it yourself. This kind of study, the kind of questioning which needs to be done on VSM cannot be done by any other person apart from you guys. And if you have a good domain knowledge, then probably you can understand the business language also, and that's how you can do it. So I missed to add that, but guys, VSM is something which is very, very important tool, which I'm sure you must study well. Try to do a VSM. In VSM, guys, if you're working in your organization, doing VSM doesn't require any cost. You don't have to procure a Minitab license to it. You just have to prepare some boxes, process maps, and then you can do it. Okay, probably I can take one session in the near future wherein I can talk about a detailed VSM. I can take some case study and I can talk about it. Probably if we have more participants, I can do our live VSM also, wherein I can take any process, and that's what we can also do. So this is one of the powerful tool, guys. If you do it, if you tell the interview that you can contribute from a VSM standpoint, you know the tool very well, you can talk about it, you know how to identify the opportunities. This is where you are telling the organization that these are the areas that you should work on so that you can improve your process. So I would request all of you to go through this go through at least these questions, and probably in the next session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you questions out of these, and then I would expect you to answer in this particular way, supported by an example, root causes, linkage, measurable statement, and methodology. And then I will see, and probably kind of asking you this question. We will do a kind of a role play, and we'll give you a real-time feedback. We'll also touch upon the storyboard as well, that what are the things we should look forward from a storyboard perspective. Is it because when we do a project, I will get 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, I have to give a very meaningful answer. So that's what it's very, very important in a storyboard perspective. Okay, so guys, time is very important, and that's what the interview also looks at. I still recall during one of my interviews, guys, the interviewer told me that Simar, you only have half an hour, or I only have half an hour. I am going to ask you 5 questions. If you're able to answer those 5 questions in half an hour, you are through. Because which means if I give an extra answer to any of the questions, the interview will not be able to ask me 5 questions, and it is my loss, right? So I will also share my experience on how much we need to speak, whether we need to do extra, whether we have to do a balanced kind of answers. That also I have to tell you. So that the interview time is very important. Or if you give a very small answer, then the interview would also not be convinced. So it shouldn't be that long. It shouldn't be that small. It should be balanced. So that is something which I'll also cover in the storyboard perspective. I want to make today's session little on the Six Sigma concept as well, because this can come only once you master this. So it's a step-by-step process, and then you can link it with your domain knowledge, in which particular domain you are applying for. So guys, anything that you want to know, any question for me? Okay, guys. So I think I hope today's session was little meaningful to all of you, wherein we focus on the Six Sigma concepts. I'll have this session next week, and if you can prepare yourself on some of the Six Sigma concepts, I can do a role play with you. We'll ask you certain questions, and then I will give you a feedback real time. The session would be recorded. You can watch it as many times as you can, and that's how you will be able to make the most out of it. Okay, guys. So thank you for your time, and thanks a lot for taking out time next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.